What does that mean? It means that patients that have been seeing general dentists, they have the comfort, they have the trust in that general dentist. But we want to get into that market. And he's talking to them about the marketing, the expense, the call center. They just log it so they know that their patients are being taken care of. So if that patient ever was to call them up,
if you have a treatment coordinator that's used to presenting $1,000 treatment on average, and you're telling them to 20 to 50xing that, they just don't have the tools, even if they're amazing.
In traditional ways, they would send them out to an oral surgeon and get a quote. And that might not include the anesthesia.
Welcome to another episode of the Full Arch Advantage podcast. I'm your host, Gary Bird. I am the founder of SMC National, where we help you create, convert, and close more full arch cases so you can grow the way that you want. And today I have Kent with us. He is the patient consultant at ARCHPOINT, and they are out of Dallas, Fort Worth. You're going to want to hear how they are actually increasing their full arch cases by working with GP offices. Pretty unique model. I've seen it a couple other places, but it seems that they're doing a great job in that area. And also he's going to share how he went from knocking patients' teeth out to putting patients' teeth back in their mouth. We share how he has been part of the NHL at the very end of the show. So you're going to want to make sure that you hear that story. Stay tuned. All right. So we are live, and I want to ask you, Kent, what are some of the things that you're doing to drive growth around full arch at your guys' offices?
Well, Gary, we're a full arch implant center specialist, and we have really traditionally focused on direct-to-consumer marketing. But now we have really introduced a program where we're supporting the general practice offices by taking our services right into their offices. What does that mean? It means that patients that have been seeing general dentists, they have the comfort, they have the trust in that general dentist. They have some missing, failing chronic dentition. Well, now we're offering our services. Well, we'll go right into the GP's office. We'll do a smile design appointment right there with them, the doctor and the patient. We'll then do surgeries right there at their office also. That patient then sees us at one of our 3 locations in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for any follow-ups. And then we go back to the GP's office with the patient for their final, if you will, celebration, for their final smile. So We're basically trying to incorporate GPs. They don't want to lose their patients. They've established trust, but they want to give them the features and benefits of full arch. And it's not as easy as it looks to a lot of people from the outside.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that we're talking here today, is that our goal with this podcast is to help people really understand all that goes into these services. Full arch is one thing to learn clinically. It's another thing to learn operationally. It's another thing to learn marketing. Yes. And those are all separate sectors and things that all have to be worked out before you actually can be successful. And it's a lot. It's really hard. So I love what you guys are doing. When you guys were sharing your program with me, I thought it was so cool that you guys are doing something. Instead of looking at everybody as competitors, you're like, hey, let's be partners with them. And I feel like that's definitely a winning recipe, and something that a lot of people are going to love. When you did this, I'm curious how this works, because when you started this off, did you guys initially, so your 3 offices, you guys started doing full arch there. So you guys are like more of a full arch center there. And then how did that come about that you were working with GPs at that level? Because most people would just say, oh, just refer them to us and we'll take care of it.
Sure. That's a great question. So we are a full arch specialist center. So, we have people coming in basically that we directly marketed to for arches. We also have many of our doctors that will go out and work with GPs. Our oral surgeon will go out to multiple different locations. They'll hire him as an oral surgeon in the GP's office. So while he's in these offices, he's talking to the GPs, and they're talking to him about what his full arch practice looks like. And he's telling them all the things that go into it. Well, we want to get into that market. And he's talking to them about the marketing, the expense, the call center, the coordination, the patient care, the patient coordinators, all the things that go into it. And he said, I think we could create a program that would be beneficial for you, your patients, make the revenue worthwhile for you to do this also. And we take on all the risk because we're experts at this, and bring it right to your office. So it really came from one of our doctors, Dr. Draper, who thought, you know what, we can work with them, not against them, because that's what the perception is out there in this dental world.
Sorry to disrupt the show, but I got something crazy to share with you. We are attempting to connect with all of our listeners. We have thousands of people that listen to this podcast, and we want to meet you in person. We have 4 events coming up, and I want to give you a discount code that you can use for the next week to save $300 off your ticket. The discount code is Gary Bird, and the link is going to be just down below. You can also go to smcnational.com/events. I hope to connect with you in person and help each other grow our businesses. Can't wait to see you soon. Yeah, I love it. And I've only seen this one other time that people are really working this. I saw a model like this up in Nebraska that got pretty big, where it's very similar circumstance that you just described. How big do you think something like this could get? And like, how many offices do you think you guys could support?
Boy, I tell you what, right now we have 5 offices. One of our offices is at least doing 1 to 2 patients every month. They've really seen how well it works, how great it is for their patients. Again, every time they come and see us for any kind of follow-ups, we're emailing the office, letting them know, hey, we just saw, John Doe in our office for this appointment. They just log it so they know that their patients are being taken care of. So if that patient ever was to call them up, they would say, oh yeah, we've been tracking your progress. We know where you're at and what's been going on. So we have 5 or 6 practices doing this with us right now. One is sending us 1 to 2 patients every month. We have 3 prosthodontists and 3 oral surgeons here on staff. And so we're well equipped to really probably double to triple that, easily before we really have to get looking at, expanding operations.
That's so cool. That's really, really neat. What are, from an operational standpoint, just so other people can kind of understand, what's the hardest part about doing full arch and really growing? Because the GP offices, because there's a lot of GP offices that are going to listen to this and they're going to go, we're adding full arch, we're going down that road. What's some things that they should really think about as they begin down that journey?
I think one of the most difficult things when they start doing that, number one, is you've got to have an expert, a professional that knows how to do this. The prosthetics, we have an in-house lab, so we make all of our own teeth, we make all of our own arches. We have the prosthodontists, we have the oral surgeons. So we are a full in-house operation. When you start doing these things at GP offices, you really have to start talking about who is your oral surgeon, what is their experience level, who you're referring them out to. What kind of lab are we going to do? What kind of experience do I have when it comes to these arches? What goes into that? And then how do I actually market some of these things? I can do it within my own practice. But let's be honest, you've been treating those patients for years. Most of them are in pretty good shape. If you're trying to bring in new patients for full arch, it's hard to get into that marketing world to do that also.
Yeah,
and then I would say on top of that, I would say on top of that, Gary, some of the most difficult things is at GP's office, a large case, it can be anywhere from $8, $12, $15, maybe $20,000. When you start talking about full arches, you're talking about $24,000 to $28,000 an arch. And that's sometimes uncomfortable for the treatment coordinators at GP's offices to even approach and understand how to approach, to talk about the features and benefits of full arch. And then we offer financing, which most GP offices don't. And so you would want to get set up with a third-party lender so that you can actually get your patients financed if necessary.
Yeah, that's all those things you just described are kind of like the tip of the iceberg, right? Like it's a lot there, but as you go down those roads, it gets more and more complicated at each level. Even just like talking about the treatment coordinator, if you have a treatment coordinator that's used to presenting $1,000 treatment on average, and you're telling them to 20 to 50xing that, they just don't have the tools. Even if they're amazing, they don't have the tools to be able to present it. And so you have to retrain them. And then the other thing, you have to learn how to schedule it. Like when the patients call, let's just say all the patients say yes, and they're just falling over you because you're the best office in the world and they're saying yes. The front desk has to know how to schedule these. And that's a whole training, because it's different than scheduling a hygiene patient. That's for sure, right? It is. And then there's post-op. Who's going to be following up with this person? And your team's not trained for it. Because you're used to maybe a root canal, maybe you're doing an extraction or something like that, or maybe even an implant. So you have some protocols on the post-op, but this is totally different, right? Like there's a whole different process, and the doctor's not going to have time to do it. So who's going to do that? So as you start to dive into all these things, it sounds like you guys are taking care of that for the offices so they don't have to worry about it. And then how are these GP offices actually getting these full arch cases? Are they patients that they already have? So they're just kind of working off of the pool of patients that they already have and have some full arch cases kind of randomly rolling through that? Or is there other things that they're doing from a marketing perspective?
Most of the time it is existing patient base that they're working through. Those patients have become to the point where they're dentally exhausted. There's just not a lot the general dentist can do for them. And whatever they do is just going to be a patchwork event. And then down the road, they're still going to have some issues. And so for the GP's office, for them to be able to say, we've partnered with ARCHPOINT. We're now able to provide you a full arch restoration. You trust us. We trust them. We have a great partnership with them. And then from there, we literally take all the risk. All they need to provide to us is chair time, 2 hours for a smile design, chair time for surgery in their office. Takes about 2.5 to 4 hours, depending on if we're doing single or double arch. And then after that, their patient sees us at one of our 3 convenient locations for all their follow-ups. And then we go back to the GP's office when we do a final delivery of that arch. We warranty it. We warranty the implants. We warranty the prosthesis. It is literally a no muss, no fuss, risk-free for the GP's office. They have a nice little chunk of revenue involved in this. And I'll get people say, what's the catch? There's got to be a catch. It sounds too good to be true. Really what it is that GP's office has to get comfortable with presenting the treatment, knowing the features and benefits, and we'll actually go out to their office and do training with their staff if they want. We'll go out and train with them. And then they have to have the ability to get the patient financed. So the catch is they have to basically be able to present it and get them financed or make sure they ask for the money. And after that, it's easy.
Yeah, I think the main takeaway here for everybody is you have to people are getting creative, right? So it used to just be, you had to refer all this stuff out. You had to refer it out. And then there was this broken process where it's like, okay, I can't help you as a general dentist. So I'm going to refer you out over here to somebody who's going to do the work. They go over there, they get this massive quote. Sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. Then they refer them back to you to do the other quote for the other side of the treatment. And the patient's just like, wait. So I'm paying this much over here and paying this much over here. And I have to say yes to both of these simultaneously, even though I'm talking to 2 different people. Like, imagine having your car worked on that way, right? Where you're like, all right, so you're doing the body work and you're replacing the motor and you're negotiating everything and you don't know much about cars, right? Like, that's traditional. And then we started to have some of these like surgical centers, kind of like what you guys are, started to crop up, and people said, okay, you can kind of refer the whole thing out if you wanted to. And the general dentist didn't really like that either, right? Like, because you're kind of losing your patient, right? And then now we start to see, well, you can have people come into your office, or you could bring somebody in. It sounds like you guys used to do that, where you bring, somebody in as like an employee or a 1099 contractor, and they do the treatment there in your office. Or you could partner with somebody and kind of make it seamless. People are just going to keep getting more and more creative. And I think that's great for the patients. I think it's amazing for the patients because it's going to eventually create like a very seamless process for the patients. So I don't see a lot of downside to the direction that we're moving with the patients. How about you? Is there anything here that we're kind of missing that's saying, you know what, this is kind of where we're at and where we're going, and here's where things could get a lot better for the patient?
I think it's been the GPs we're working with. Once again, a lot of GPs are not educated on full arch, really what they is. They're a little bit scared of full arch and arch type of centers. They just feel like, we're sitting down and we're pulling out every tooth in the mouth, whether they're good or not. And that's really not the case. I mean, we are only doing these for people that have chronic dentition, missing, failing. This is really an option for them to restore their function and their smile, their self-confidence. All these things go into it. And you're right. In traditional ways, they would send them out to an oral surgeon and get a quote. And that might not include the anesthesia. It's confusing for a lot of patients, and they don't want that. They want just an easy one-stop shop, if you will. Tell me what it's going to cost me, what it's going to get me, what are my features and benefits. And so when I say down, there's really no downside to this from the GPs we've been utilizing up to this point.
You know what? I do have a question. It escaped me there for a moment, but then I just popped back in. You said that the GP office gets a good portion of this. They're actually keeping some of the treatment cost, which is interesting because when you refer out to an oral surgeon or you refer your patient out, there's no fee splitting, right? Like there's a big time no. So how, with this model that you guys have, how do you kind of make that functional to where that works for everybody?
Sure. So essentially, that patient is a patient of the GP's office. They're going to present treatment plan for them and the treatment fees. That's going to be up to each office to set what their treatment fees are. Essentially, then, we partner, or for lack of better terms, we're a subcontractor. So we are now hired out at a specific price point that we have designed to make it very lucrative to the general practice offices. So if that GP wants, the going rate for a single arch is $24,000 to $26,000, start to finish. And we provide a 5-year warranty on, all parts and labor and everything else. So depending on where that GP office wants to price their arch, they know what our set fee is. So our set fee is this per arch. If they want to charge the going rate, they're going to make a nice chunk of change. If they want to just give it away, they just charge our fee. So it's going to be up to that GP's office to set their price point and how much revenue that will generate for their practice per arch.
Got it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So that, again, is a win-win-win, right? It's best for the other office. It's great for you guys, and everybody kind of wins, and the patient doesn't have to go to bunch of different dental offices and try to learn everybody's system. Well, I absolutely love this. If you guys are in the Fort Worth, Texas area. Oh, actually, I got one more question.
Yeah.
I got one more question with you. You won a Stanley Cup ring?
Yeah, I actually spent my first 8 years in Dallas, Texas with the Dallas Stars hockey organization working in their front office. And so that was when, you had guys like Mike Madonna and Eddie Belfour and Craig Ludwig. And hockey was real hockey back then. There was lots of fighting, lots of goals, and lots of fun. And so in 1999, we had a great team. We won the Stanley Cup, and the team and organization was gracious and generous where everybody in the front office got a Stanley Cup ring. So I was part of that. So, yeah, that was really cool. I appreciate you asking that, Gary. That was some of the best times of my life.
So you went from an industry where they regularly knock out teeth to now putting teeth back in people's mouths. Is that right?
Absolutely. And in fact, we did a little funny marketing thing a few games ago. Stars are in the Cup playoffs right now, and we had seats right behind the Dallas Stars bench, and 6 of us from the office went, and we had jerseys made, and we fixed hockey teeth on the front of our jerseys, and we blacked out our front teeth. So as we sat there for the game, it was quite funny, everyone looking at us and giving us the attention. But it was a fun play on words, because you're right. I went from one industry of knocking teeth out, putting them back in.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, great stuff. If someone is in your guys' area and they're a GP office, or they're somebody who's thinking about doing full arch, how can they get a hold of you and kind of pick your brain and see if this might be a good partnership?
We would love to talk to them. I'll actually give out my personal cell phone number. I'm the coordinator of the program, so I'm the face of it, so people deal directly with me. And my cell phone number is 469-431-2893. And they could just call me direct, text me on that number. Happy to talk to them over the phone, or actually set up a meet and greet where I go to their office and meet them and talk to them about the whole process.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you, Gary.